mathematical problem. So I am going to do the ones you want me to do, but I want to go through answers to make sure you guys are doing them correctly. So number 2, what did you guys get for an answer? 107 and 252, something like that. 108, 252, about there. Okay, what did you guys get for 4? 17 and no, 163. That's signs, got to be top 2 quadrants. That's positive. So it should be 17 and 163. How about 6? So about 10 degrees and 170 and there should be basically a 10-degree angle in all 4 quadrants. Because don't forget, when you take a square root, you have to remember plus or minus. So you need both quadrants where it's positive, both quadrants where it's negative, which means you need all 4 quadrants. So you need basically that 10-degree angle in all 4 quadrants. So you should have like 10, 170, 190, and 350. How about 8? Anybody? 60, 80, 279, 300. By the way, they don't have to be written in numerical order. It's better if they're written in numerical order like that. You know, if you wrote 60 and 300, because those came out of the same same part, and 80 and 280, that's fine too. How about 10? 30 and 150. Ooh, we should do that one, because I don't think those are right. So, number 10 says 8. Whoa, that's not an 8. 8 sine squared minus 2 sine minus 1. Will that factor? Yes, it will. What 2 numbers multiply to 8 and subtract the 2? 4 and 2. So that's 4 sine, 2 sine, 1 and 1. The signs have to be different, and the bigger one has to be negative, so I need the 4 to be the negative, the 1 to be the positive. That absolutely does factor. I will do this one quadratic formula though too, because I want to show you something with quadratic formula. So you're going to get 2 answers. Basically, sine's going to equal 1/2. 1 to sine equal a half. 30 and 150, right? Top 2 quadrants were positive. This one, sine's going to equal -1/4. So that's where I got to grab the calculator. Make sure I am in the correct mode of degrees. Do the inverse sine of -1/4. What 2 quadrants am I looking for answers in? 3rd and 4th, because it's negative. It's going to give me the principal value. I don't want the principal value in this case because it's negative, so I add 360. And then I got to get to the 3rd quadrant. So 3rd quadrant is 180 plus the reference angle of 14. So 180 plus 14 or minus the negative. And it would be 194. So 345 and 194. There's your 4 answers. Does that make sense? Now, if you did not think that this would factor, and you thought, all right, 8 sine squared minus 2 sine minus 1, and you're thinking, all right, quadratic formula. Sine will equal negative of b plus and minus, stupid thing, plus and minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. What's this going to be? 4 times 8 is 32. Negative and a negative is a positive, so 32 plus 4 is At this point, I know I should have factored it. Why? Because what's the square root of 36? When you get a nice number like that in the square root, yeah, it's going to factor into a nice number because the square root is a nice number. So when you get this, now you know, yeah, I probably should have done this one factoring. So, but you're still not out of the woods. You can still do it. What's 2 plus 6? 8 over 16. Well, there's my 1/2. So sine could equal 1/2. What's 2 minus 6? -4 over 16. Well, there's my -1/4. And I can finish those two as well. So you'll get the same answers. But just so you know, if you ever get that square root when you do this quadratic formula, could have made this easier on myself and would have factored it. So, cool? How about 12? What did you guys get for 12? 3 answers. It's not 90. It's 270. Should be -1. Should be 270. And then what? 13 and 167. Good. 14. Your 4 answers should be 49, 131, 191, and 349. Anybody want me to do that one? Uh, 16. 2 answers. 4, 176. Anybody? Yes? All right, so that one says cosecant squared minus 15 cosecant plus 1. Well, that's obviously not going to factor, right? Like there's no two numbers that multiply to 1 and add up to 15. That ain't going to work. So, quadratic formula. Cosecant's going to equal -b, so 15, plus and minus the square root of b squared, which would be 15 squared, or 225, minus 4 ac, all over 2a. So basically I got to do 15 plus and minus the square root of 221 over 2. Grabbing a calculator. So 15 plus the square root 221 divided by 2. Now, that's bigger than 1. Is that okay? Why? How do I find the inverse cosecant? I do inverse sine of what? 1 over. Which that's going to turn that big number into a small number. So I can take the inverse sine. That's a positive. So first quadrant and second quadrant. So 2 answers are 3.8 and 176.2. So we get those 2 answers. Am I done? Now I got to do the minus version, right? Now the minus version, when you do 15 minus the square root of 221, well, the square root of 221 is almost 15, isn't it? That's going to be a tiny little number. And I divide that by 2, that's also a tiny little number. What's going to happen when I reciprocal a tiny number? It's going to be a big number. So this is not going to work. When I do inverse sine of 1 divided by that tiny number, it's going to say domain error. It's not going to work. Can't do it. So the minus version doesn't give us any answer. Those are our only 2 answers. Good? Okay. Let's see. 18 you should have 93 and 267. Anybody want me to do it? Yeah? Okay. So that one says secant squared plus 18 secant plus 9. Again, not going to factor. Two numbers multiply to 9, add up to 18. So secant's going to equal negative b plus or minus, I don't know what 18 squared is off the top of my head, 4 times 1 times 9, all over 2a. All right, so what the heck is 18 squared? All right, minus what, 36? So I get to negative 18 plus and minus the square root of 288 over 2. And then I got to take the inverse secant. So negative 18 plus the square root of that. Divide by 2. What's going to happen when I inverse secant that? 0.5. Is that going to work? No. I'm not going to be able to take the inverse cosine of that reciprocal. It's going to be a big number. So all I have to do is negative 18 plus, or minus now, the square root of the 288. Divide that by 2. Okay, negative number. I'm inverse cosining the reciprocal of a negative. So second and third quadrant, right? So 93.3 is an answer. How do I go second quadrant to third quadrant? I got to do 180 minus to find my reference angle, and then add 180 to get to the third quadrant. So there's your two answers. How are we feeling with this? Good? Bad? Decent? Are these harder than the ones without a calculator, or about the same, or about the same?
You just have to keep track of what you had.
Yeah, there's a lot of calculator work for this one question. So, let's see. You could skip 20, 22, 24. What did you guys get for 26? Anybody figure out you could factor that one? 8 and 3. So you get like negative 1/8, negative 1/3. So you should have 4 answers. 97, 109, 251, and 263. Yes? Anybody want me to do that one? 28. Now 28, the directions do say to switch into radians. What's the only difference that the book really wanted you to do? The only difference between, like if you were following the actual directions of the book, the only difference would be do them exactly the same, just change the mode of your calculator. That would be the only difference to do them in radians. Like the answers the book has for number 28 are 3.27. Well, 3.27 as a degree, if you take that 3.27 times it by 180 and divide by pi, I'll bet you some of you have an answer of about 187-ish as an answer. Yes? So it'll be a little different because that's not real precise. That 3.27 is rounded. So what did you get for an actual answer for that instead of that? 187. Okay. All right. The other one I do want to do is number 34. Anybody want one before that? You want 32? Okay. So that one is 12 cotangent squared. Huh?
You don't have to do that one.
Oh, that one had a 13 in there. You don't have to do that one. Now, 34 is a little different. Oh, what do you do with that 3x minus 1? There's actually a really easy way to do this. Pick a letter, any letter. Q.
Wait, for 34, it's not 3x plus 1, it's 2x plus 3.
Did I copy it down wrong?
Well, yeah, you have like the...
Oh, dang it. All right, let's try that again. So it's 7 sine squared of 2x plus 3 plus sine 2x plus 3 minus 2. Yes?
Yeah.
All right. This one looks hard because of the 2x plus 3, right? So you pick a letter, any letter. Q. And you're going to say let Q equal 2x plus 3. And you rewrite it as 7 sine squared of Q plus sine of Q minus 2. This you can solve. But you have to remember, is the answers to this going to be the answers to the problem? No. Whatever you get for answers to this. So let's say you factor this out, solve the inverse, and let's say you get sine is equal to a half, I don't know, and you get 30 is one answer, right? Well, that's for Q. What you would do is just throw that up here. And then you got to solve this for x. So you minus 3, divide by 2. So whatever the answers you get out of this, all you got to do is take them, minus 3, divide by 2, minus 3, divide by 2, minus 3, divide by 2. So it just adds one more step to those problems. Does that make sense? So you solve it just like all the other ones, but then you just got to minus 3 divide by 2 for all of those. Fair enough?
Yeah.
All right, see you guys tomorrow.